Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 10th, Muscatine School District Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll and help us determine the quorum, please?
Sure. Director Connard.
Present.
Cooney.
Present.
DeBeat.
Present.
LaRue.
Present.
Schneider. Sure.
Present.
Director Phillips is absent. The quorum is present.
Thank you. Well, next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Can you please rise and help us recite the pledge? Thank you all, and we start our meeting by welcoming all our visitors and media representatives. It's always nice to see a full crowd here in front of us. Thank you for attending our meeting. With that, we move right away to Citizen Speaks. If anyone in the audience wants to address the board, please step to the podium, state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Per Iowa code, we cannot respond or engage in any discussion during the board meeting, but as I always say, that doesn't mean you cannot connect with us via emails or phone calls after the meeting, but during the meeting, we cannot engage in any discussion. Anybody would like to address the board? Thank you. So moving forward, we move into the board targets, goals, report. Let me list 3 of them first, and then we go back to each item and work with each one and listen to the presentation. The first item is students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. The second one, Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably. And the third one, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. We go back to the first item, which is students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options, and we do have one item under that, which is the seal of biliteracy with Morgan Moore and Caitlin Skipper, please.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Moore. I'm one of the associate principals at Muscatine High School. And with me, I have Mrs. Kathleen Skippers. She is one of our Spanish teachers at the high school. And in just a few moments, I'm going to recognize some of our graduating seniors, our graduated seniors, and as they have earned the seal of biliteracy. But I thought it'd be a great opportunity tonight to talk to you a little bit about what the seal of biliteracy is and why it's so important to Muscatine High School and the community of Muscatine. So I'm just going to quickly go over how it came to be in Iowa, because it's a nationally recognized program, the history in Muscatine Community Schools, and then recognize this year's students. So back in 2018, Governor Reynolds went ahead and supported that this be recognized within the Department of Education and instituted at any public high school or school district in Iowa, for any district to offer the seal of biliteracy, which is basically the chance to show that a student is proficient in 2 or more languages. The first language obviously being English, and the second language being any of the major world languages that are spoken. Why is the seal of biliteracy important? The state of Iowa and Muscatine Community Schools, we value language as an asset. It recognizes the global impact that language is, and it shows how prepared students will be to go about in our 21st century as they go out into the career and work world. And something really exciting came about last week. We got some news that the first college in Iowa, the University of Northern Iowa, is going to start recognizing the seal of biliteracy, in that they will begin offering credits for students who satisfy the requirements for the seal of biliteracy, meaning that these students will automatically earn credits up to 6 credits for most languages and up to 8 credits if the students speak Chinese as they enter a 4-year program at the University of Northern Iowa. So that's really exciting. It's the first college in Iowa to do so. So in Muscatine Community Schools, within the community and the schools, we kind of see lots of amazing things going on with language. We have a dual language program beginning at the elementary level. We have an immensely huge international community here in Muscatine, where many countries and their languages are represented here. We have many businesses and corporations that bring their employees in from around the world. We have Spanish and Chinese languages offered in junior high, and at the high school level, we have French, German, Spanish, and Chinese. And the high school is very unique in that there aren't many neighboring districts that offer anything beyond Spanish and French these days. So we're pretty privileged at Muscatine High School. So in 21-22, we began offering the seal of biliteracy, kind of in conjunction with our head counselor at the time, Mrs. Hawkins, and the support of our languages department. We tested 25 students that year. 13 students earned that seal, and the languages all included German, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. Last year was a pretty big year. We tested again 25 students, and 16 students earned the seal. Those languages that were represented last year were Russian, German, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. And that is just amazing to see that we have students coming into the high school that have access and can speak those languages. This year we tested over 30 students. 35 students earned the seal, and the languages included French, German, Spanish, and Chinese. And just this year, 2 students for the first time ever earned the seal of biliteracy in Chinese. That was very exciting for us. So we do have some students here tonight, and with the help of Mrs. Skippers, I'm going to call them up. They received a seal of biliteracy sticker on their diploma, and that goes on their transcript, which will follow them to their college. But we do something a little bit special at the high school level. We developed a pin for them to wear, and they also have a certificate as well. So the first student I would like to recognize would be Macy Molina. I have Jasmine Pineda. Yes, and please stand at the front. We're going to get a picture when everyone is called up. I have Clarissa Franco. I have Renee Lynn. I have Cesar Garrido. I have Ismael Lopez. I have Vanya Marmol. I have Nicholas Schell. And then I have Ezekiel Alvarado. All right, if we could give them all a round of applause really quick. If you have any questions about these opportunities that are present for our students, you can contact any of the teachers up there, including myself. Again, my name is Morgan Moore. I'm the associate principal at the high school. We have Kathleen Skippers here tonight. She teaches Spanish. Ashton Horn will be our new German teacher. Heidi Kuo is our Chinese teacher. Dave Moeller, Marina Gomez, our Spanish teachers. And then Katie Marin Futman is our French teacher. So a special thank you again to Mindy Stoltes, who has helped create these certificates and pins for the students as well. Thank you.
I saw that you also had Russian, but we don't have a Russian teacher. How does that work?
That's a really good question. So we are also fortunate to have foreign exchange students who come to stay with us. And we had a student last year from Moldova, and she spoke many languages, but she wanted to test her Russian to see how strong that was. And she, of course, tested with Russian, yes. We did have a German student this year who tested and received the seal for German, English, and Spanish as well.
Morgan,
No, I was just going to say thank you.
Morgan, that's really an amazing achievement to see these students receiving an honor like that. So congratulations to all of you who received this honor, and thank you for doing this and supporting such programs like that. Thank you. Anybody have any question? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So the other item under board targets, goals, report that we have also a presentation in, it will be the student will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And under that, we have special education delivery plan presentations by, I assume Becky will start the presentation.
All right, good evening, thank you. I'm here to share with you a proposal of our district developed service delivery plan that would be enacted this fall, and it would remain in place for the next 5 years. I also have Susan Downs. Susan Downs is our DSA from Mississippi Bend to AEA, and she too will also be sharing the podium with myself. So you might be wondering, what is this document? Well, this document, the service delivery plan, it is required of all districts in the state of Iowa to develop a district service delivery plan for special education services. And you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? The state puts out guidelines and requirements, and the requirements are to go through these 5 questions and as a committee develop answers and examples of what this looks like. So the 5 questions are, and as you can see in the document that we shared with you, the plan is based on these 5 questions. So the first question is, what process was used to develop the special education delivery system for eligible individuals? How will services be organized and provided to eligible individuals? How will caseloads of special education teachers be determined and regularly monitored? And what procedures will special education teachers use to resolve any caseload concerns that they may have? And what process will be used to evaluate the effectiveness of the delivery system for eligible students? So the DE provides, they provide a document of guidance that gives examples, it gives an overview, so it helps committees putting together and sorting through these questions and what that might look like. And tonight we're going to be kind of going into deeper detail on what that looks like. So the Department of Ed puts together a 6-step criteria. The first step is that the district will identify individuals to be on a committee to review and create the service delivery plan. And there are specific guidelines of who must be serving on this committee. We had a committee that was developed. We met 5 times to consider the modifications to our current plan and our plan prior before we posted it on for public comment. The plan was available for public comment for 2 weeks. It was posted on May 25th. The committee then is to consider any public comments that were made and obviously to take those into consideration. There were no public comments made. So therefore, the committee did not have to reconvene to go over any of those comments because there were none. The next step is once we have a proposed plan, it is sent to the AEA Special Education Director to verify the plan is in compliance with administrative code. It also follows the IDEA regulations. So the AEA Special Education Director is Kim Hoffman. So the proposed plan was sent to Kim Hoffman. She reviewed the plan. She sent it back to us saying that it met all the criteria that was required by the DE and that it was in compliance with administrative code and also with the IDEA. Then the last step is to share with the board the service delivery plan, which is this evening. So tonight we are here to kind of talk through that, and then it would be on the consent agenda at the July 8th meeting for your approval. So tonight is the night where we get to talk about it and ask any questions, and then it will actually be on the July 8th agenda for approval. So this is the makeup of our committee, and thank you for those of you that were on the committee that came this evening. We appreciate your support. So within the DE guidelines, it's pretty specific to Administrative Code 41.408C that the group of individuals included, we must have parents, special education teachers, general education teacher, administrator, representative of the AEA. So therefore, our committee was selected, and we had, as you can see, we had a multiple list. We had several people that served in both roles, parent and a parent educator. Currently, the Danielle, Denise, and Mike also serve on our special ed advisory council, which we took this plan to our advisory council and kind of wondering, hey, do we have any volunteers that would like to serve on this committee? We think it's going to be maybe 3 to 5 meetings. And so these were the people that graciously said thank you and were truly active in the whole process. So we had Allison Fry. Allison is an early childhood special education teacher at Melk. We had a Strat 2 ID teacher, Madison, who currently is at Jefferson Elementary. Holly Reeves, a Strat 1 teacher at Susan Clark. Terry Tolliver is a Strat 1 teacher at the high school. Marsha McGill was representing a general education teacher. Paige William, behavior specialist. Leslie served as the elementary principal. Stacy Orr, assistant principal from Susan Clark. Rachel Cuppy, the assistant principal from the high school. Myself, Rachel Terry from the Mississippi Bend AEA, and then Susan. So this was our committee that we put together and really had a great discussion. So I'm going to let Susan kind of share a little bit about the details that we went through as a committee.
So you can see the 5 dates that we met. When we met, the first time we met, Becky and I provided them the state criteria and the samples from the state. They provide 3 samples regarding how to respond to the questions. And we also provided district examples. So we pulled examples from several districts and provided those for members of the committee to review. And then we let everybody leave and review all of that information and brought everybody back. And we gave them also a copy of the Muscatine plan. And then from there, just asked for ideas around what did they like from these examples and what did they think they didn't like, actually. And then Becky and I took that information, came up with a draft, brought the committee back together, asked them for input, and from there we made revisions. And then we needed to take a look at the caseload review. So part of this process is determining how buildings can look at their caseloads to ensure that we are properly staffing the buildings so that we can provide FAPE but not overstaff, right? So that also the district can be good stewards of public funds. And so we had teachers take a look at those different examples from the state and practice or play with them, come back and talk to us about that. They chose one that they thought was best, but they had some ideas about how those needed to look. So Becky and I took those back and revised them, sent them back out to the teachers so that they could kind of play with them to make sure that they worked, and then put that all together, and that's when we put it out for public contact. But we had multiple meetings and multiple drafts.
So you do have a copy of the proposed service delivery plan. So at this time, what questions might you have about the service delivery plan or anything that resolves around those 5 questions that makes up the plan?
So on the regular early childhood program with teacher holding dual endorsements, no, I'm sorry, on the general education with consultation, service providers at the AEA person? Who is considered the service provider in that?
So when you do the continuum of services, that is just the district ensuring that there are all options available to an IEP team to determine what services will look like. Because the only group that has the authority to determine what services a child will get is an IEP team. And so honestly, that would be up to an IEP team to determine
So the
what that
service,
would be.
so the,
A lot of times what that looks like is when a child is on a 45-day release. And so they would be in gen ed, and we would be looking at, are they going to be released from special ed? And so the child would be in gen ed, and the special ed teacher would do progress monitoring
yeah,
along the way. But again, all of those services are determined by an IEP team, and the district just needs to ensure all options are available, and the teams get to make those determinations.
right. But I'm going to question. So it says the service provider is responsible for consulting with the gen ed teachers.
Yep.
So the service provider is the whole team,
It's the special ed teacher,
the special ed teacher, okay.
or a
Is
speech
that specified in
pathologist,
other places?
yeah,
like
or a
supportive
speech
service.
pathologist,
Any AAA or any
or a
AA,
PT,
any
whoever,
AAA person
yeah,
or
whoever
the,
is the
depending on the IEP.
the person on the IEP.
You have, on question number 4, it says what procedures with a special education teacher use to resolve caseload concerns. It's done twice a year. Is that enough time frame in which to do twice a year, or is it something that can or should
So
look at
twice
more?
a year to look at overall staffing, but a teacher can make the request anytime.
Ideally, what's the caseload, what should a caseload be? Does it vary?
Yes, and so you can.
What's too many?
Yeah, what is too many? So the caseload determination form, which you have a copy
Yep,
of.
I see that.
So the special education teacher will take a look at their roster, and as you go through, they get points for, you know, if a number of students has 2 or more goals, they get a point. So you add up all these points to determine what would be a fair amount. And so our caseload determination was between, what we had on here? Between 65.
65 and 75 points.
Yeah.
So there would be a range depending on kind of where things fall. It varies for teachers and it varies for students. But want to make sure it's within reason.
Sure. Because each teacher is responsible for the IEP, correct?
Well, actually,
Well, the whole-
multiple people are.
Multiple people, yeah. But who actually, does a teacher do the paperwork?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so.
yes.
Or a speech pathologist. If there are multiple people who have hands on the IEP, so if there are multiple service providers, like a speech pathologist and a physical therapist and a teacher, they all would have a part in that IEP. So it depends.
So can a gen ed teacher do a caseload review request?
Can you repeat that? I couldn't
Can
hear
a
you.
gen ed teacher do a caseload review request?
Tell me more.
Okay, a gen ed teacher has 6 IEPs in her classroom. She's feeling completely overwhelmed because in this, it says general education teacher is responsible for direct instruction, testing, grading, and behavioral management as specified in the IEP. So if a gen ed teacher feels like she's overloaded with IEP students, can he or she do a caseload review request, or is that just for the SPED teachers?
My response to that would be the gen ed teacher would be talking with the special education teacher because the special education teacher is delivering the SDI. So the general education teacher would talk to the special education teacher, and they could sit down and fill out a caseload review.
And
Correct.
they could also just take it to the IEP team and
Yes.
say,
And the
we're
building
not sure
And
this
the-
teacher is, the
and
student
involve
is
the
getting
building
the
administrator.
services that they need.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be a conversation to have. Yeah. And with the building.
Well, I just wasn't, I have never seen that.
This-
I didn't know there was a caseload review request, so I was wondering if it was okay for a gen ed teacher to have that same. I feel like I've heard and have felt as a teacher that sometimes the gen ed teacher has overload issues as well and are sometimes overlooked. I'm not saying on purpose or anything, but if they had a review or a request or a format to address their concerns, I think that would be good.
And I think, Kim, what you're talking about is, when I think of the last 5-year plan and this proposed, the difference is the caseload determination and putting in parameters that it is completed, and it is completed twice a year, versus only once a year, because things change throughout the year, and a student's needs can change. And actually, our committee, we met several times in figuring out the caseload determination, and we actually there was 3 different samples that were recommended, and the group kind of took parts of a couple of them and put them together, and we added more because just exactly what you said, you know, this student might have 2 goals, and on paper they might not, but they also have these other related services and things like that. So actually, our caseload determination, it started out with 6, and as you can see, we ended up with 11 things, so we truly get a good picture of the needs and the supports that the student has. And that really wasn't articulated in the last one. This goes a little bit deeper to share that picture.
Right, and I think another part of that picture is just scheduling when you're a gen ed teacher with all of these students being, especially elementary, obviously, self-contained, being pulled for all these different things, and yet still being responsible for the core curriculum. Gets a little tricky if you have too many. I mean, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yes.
And then my another question, caseload determination is by the Director of Student Services. Is that, like, that person has final determination, or is that an IEP team decision as well?
Well, the caseload determination, it funnels through the building, so it has multiple
I mean,
layers.
I read the.
So by the time it reaches to me, there's been conversation with the special education teacher, the general education teacher, the principal, the AEA. Then when it comes to me, we would review those, and then I would meet with the principal and determine what needs to, next steps.
Okay.
As you know, posting a position mid-year and hiring, sometimes that's a little difficult.
No,
So what do we need to do? Do we need to do some shifting around? Do we need to add some support services? So then we would determine if more support is needed, and then what does more look like?
And I'm not trying to be negative, but what if that is not to the satisfaction of the teacher? Do they have like just fill out another one? I guess.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
pretty
I
sure
feel
that
like
we'd be
the
able
way
to
you're gonna
resolve it.
work it through, it looks
Yeah.
like a good system, but
Yeah,
sometimes things that look good on paper don't always come
yeah,
to truth. So I hope that this looks great. I hope that it's
yeah,
followed and transparent and
yeah.
The purpose of this
accountability is held
to
for
determine
people.
staffing needs for
Right,
for
no, I
buildings.
understand
that's
that.
the purpose of this.
I have more, I guess, perhaps a statement area with it is, I know enough to be dumb, in a manner speaking, meaning this is so involved with each of these kids in so many different ways. And I have to commend you for what you're trying to do here to make sure that we get that right. And I would like a chance, if possible, to learn more about how this system actually works. Because sometimes we get presented things and it's difficult for us to really totally catch. And then when you ask us if we have any questions, it's hard to articulate what those questions are right now. But so in the future, Clint, I don't know if there's anything of any more background information or things like that that could be done for us to help us to understand things a little clearer before you get here. But thank you, though. I think you did a great job on this.
I know this takes a lot of work to get all.
Just a quick question, Becky and Susan. I mean, first of all, thank you for this work too. But this plan, we are rolling this for like 2024 to 2029. That's 5 years plan. Is there a room for perhaps a change during this time? Let's say after 1 year, you get I'm sure you get some feedback, on how this plan worked, the good, the bad about the plan and so on. So there is always a room for improvement and so on, right?
Yeah, you can amend these.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And Susan, I have a question for you, if that's okay.
Yes?
Just because I think, again, we start with kind of a state template, right? We use some samples from other districts. Obviously, Kim Hoffman is reviewing all of them. And then you, from an AEA standpoint, you see a lot of these. So as you see plans for a variety of different districts, what do you see are the, maybe the differences between districts? Are these all pretty much the same? Or like, what are some of the variances that you might find?
They're very similar, and this looks very similar to several other districts. Some use different caseload determinations. I think they just pick a preference. And again, the caseload determination form is just it's a formula to help at the district level and the building level to ensure that your staffing kind of hits that, as we talked about it with our whole group, the sweet spot, right? It's not perfect, because there's no perfect formula. And so you have to be somewhat flexible with it. The goal here is to make sure that the staffing is correct, right, or reasonable enough so that your staff can meet the needs of kids, but that you don't overstaff, because as a board and as a district, you're stewards of public funds. And you've just got to keep that in mind as well. And so you have to work through that. But typically, and when our teachers played with this to make sure, and we looked at self-contained programs, we looked at our Strat 1 teachers and their caseloads, this formula worked well as long as we kept that range between 65 and 75. Their numbers fell within there, and so we felt pretty good once we added a couple of items that weren't on there originally to kind of help with our self-contained programs. It worked really well for our Strat 1 teachers. So, yeah, that's the point of the caseload determination form. And then when a teacher starts to feel like they might be overwhelmed with their caseload, it's an opportunity for them mid-year to go to their principal and say, hey, I feel like maybe my numbers are getting high. Can we take a look at this? And can we pull in the district office to look at this with us so that maybe we can shift some things around? And it might be shifting some things around within the building, because there might be another teacher whose caseload is not as high. It might be the district taking a look and looking at things district-wide and finding out, hey, yep, things are really high in this building, but I look over here at this building and we got a teacher who's underutilized that maybe we can share, or that's the purpose of this piece. And then when you look at the continuum of services, which you were kind of asking about before, it really is the district as a whole, you as a board and the district providing this range of, saying to your teams and to our families, yep, we are ensuring that we are going to guarantee that we're going to allow or provide a continuum that goes from kids being in gen ed all day long to if an IEP team says that a child has to go to a residential setting, this district will find that setting that's appropriate and pay for it. That rarely happens, I'm going to tell you. That's a once in a blue moon thing that happens, but sometimes it does. And this document is saying, yep, we guarantee it. And then, but nobody here gets to make those decisions, only IEP teams get to. And so that's where those conversations occur. And so that's kind of what this document is saying in a short version. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And all districts have to guarantee that.
We have the opportunity for more discussion on this before we vote on it. I mean, if we come up with more questions next meeting, I assume. Thanks for all your work.
More questions? Okay. Thank you, Becky and Susan.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. So moving forward with our agenda, we move into the superintendent updates.
Thank you, John. Just a few items I want to update you on. Chris Nienhaus couldn't be here tonight. He's on vacation, so I did want to just do some quick updates On construction, things are moving forward at Central with the existing demo after we made that approval the last time. They have run into a few things, but all in all, it's gone pretty well as they kind of sort through and determine what's clean material and what isn't. We do believe that's going to be under the projected budget that was set. And no one's wanting to give us a more specific number than that, but certainly less than what was approved. So we'll keep you posted on that. Jefferson's moving along really well. They'll be working around summer school, but same things seem to be on track there. Susan Clark for the athletic center, they've started doing some of the earthwork, so that process has gotten started, relocating football shed and so on. But things are moving forward on that. You'll have a change order tonight. That's a part of that process. Baseball and softball have, obviously we've had our ribbon cuttings there, and we had an issue with Tom Bruner with the restrooms, and it was the sewer feed from the road in, and they did get that resolved, so that's finished. One of the pieces with softball that wasn't done, restroom partitions had not arrived. Those have been, they're now in and should be completed by the end of, I think, the end of the week, according to Chris. Playgrounds, and again, you'll be looking at the Grant Playground tonight, but we'll be starting on the process of doing Mulberry. Once they finish that, after your approval tonight for Grant, they'll roll right into that. And one of the it's an advantage to us is because there aren't very many of these contractors, and so they're coming from far away. So the fact that they aren't having to leave and then come back, we're actually saving some money on that. So that's a nice benefit for that. New security cameras at all of our buildings. As they come in, the wiring is all done, so just as those cameras come in, they'll be brought online. The temporary classrooms at Madison will be removed by the end of this month, so that is exciting, will be happening. And then some basic remodel, the main floor at transportation. A lot of that's being done by our maintenance team. They're working on some, I think they're doing all of it except some new flooring. So those are some of the construction projects and updates that are happening now. A couple of other pieces, just where we're at with hiring. We currently just have 4 positions open. There is 3 of those positions are special ed positions. There are 2 special ed positions at Mulberry that we'll be filling. There's 1 special ed Strat 2 position at the high school and a social studies position at the high school. But we're in a really good spot, and so we'll continue to work on getting all those filled and ready for the start of school in the fall. And then the last piece that I wanted to share is just an update on our attendance. And this is something that obviously as a board we've focused on, as a district we have focused on. But I think it's another area for celebration. Going back a few years and then many years prior to that, but certainly 3 years ago, our chronic absentee percentage was 33.9%, almost 34%. That means 1 out of every 3 students in this district was missing 18 or more school days per year. And we knew that was a problem. And that didn't just start with COVID, it started prior to that. So again, a lot of work, a lot of effort in the buildings here at the district office and with the county attorney. What we saw then the year after that, it dropped to 17.2%, which was a huge improvement. And then this year, as we finish this year, we finish at 14.2%. So again, you know, obviously at some point we're going to start to flatten that out. We're not going to make those huge decreases. But the difference between that 14% this year and the 34% from a few years ago means that 900 students are now not chronically absent that would have been prior. So again, a lot of work has gone into that, lots of conversations and support. but it means our kids are spending more time in the classroom where they need to be, and that's really positive. The other positive piece with that, another piece we've been tracking related to attendance, is our staff attendance. Again, prior to COVID and through the first few years of COVID, our staff attendance wasn't great. And if your staff attendance isn't great, typically your student attendance isn't great either. So that has been another area of focus. It was up last year, it is up again this year, so about a 1.5% increase from last year, and that's for all of our groups, both certified and non-certified staff at about 92%. So again, seeing some really positive improvements there, both from student attendance and from staff attendance. And so I just wanted to highlight that as another little success as we wrap up the school year. And then the last thing, I will not update you tonight, but I will be updating you in more detail in July on the AEA. So I've been having some conversations with Shane Williams and Kim Hoffman as to how this, based on the state legislation, will play out for that, what next year looks like, and had some opportunities to kind of work through this process with them. Part of the holdup on this is, they're trying to do this to support us as districts, but they're also trying to work with all the AEAs so there's consistency across all those groups. So that's kind of slowed that process down a little bit. I'll be meeting with them, and any directors that are available, we'll meet with them on Thursday morning to dig into a little more of those specifics on what the 40% covers, what the 60% covers, and what funds we would have available to us from that. So I will update you on that in July. With that, any questions?
Clint, actually, I just wanted to say, first of all, yay for the Madison trailer finally being gone. Thank you very much. And then with the softball and hardball diamonds, I did not get a chance to go to the hardball one, but the softball with Denny's time was quite enjoyable. And it was great to see the amount of students that came back for it and everything. And quite the kiddos to you and staff for everything on how the field looks and feels, for our kids. I am an old dirt person when I played softball, so to see the turf there was really interesting. But to see the caliber of play of these kids was just tremendous. So thank you very much for giving our kids a place they can call their own.
They're outstanding facilities, and I think another, credit to just a variety of people who've made sure that happened. But one of the things I think is neat is that we know that when they get done playing, visiting teams, they're out there taking pictures of our field, right? The kids are, the parents are, there's a lot to be proud of there. I know we held our first softball tournament on Saturday, correct, Denny? So. These are things that always would have been more of a challenge in the past, and we have, the opportunity to do that now. So we're excited for those fields to finally be up and running again.
Well, Karen, you said you're an old dirt person. I was at a baseball game this weekend where the wind was blowing profusely, and I was eating dirt. So I like the turf fields.
Well, I actually asked Denny if I could try some sliding on that turf, and he said something about, no, he didn't want ambulance coming that night, so, thank you.
Thank you, Clint, for the updates, and indeed, like the softball, the baseball, two state-of-the-art addition to our school district, but also now, like hearing the statistics about, students being absent, 33% 3 years ago, now down to 14.2. That's a great achievement. And that's, I'm sure, a comprehensive effort, let's put it this way, from everybody at our district, that we are witnessing numbers like that, and also with the increase with the staff also. So thank you for everything. So any other question for Clint? Okay, so we move to next item on our agenda, which is the possible action. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests. in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are 1, minutes, 2, employment recommendations, 3, bills and claims, 4, agreement with EICC nursing program, 5, student-teacher agreement with Iowa State, 6, agreement with EICC College Connections Program, 7, continuation of SE Strat 2 incentive pay, and 8, third and final readings on policies. What are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like 8 as a rookie. I think it's because I'm a new person. I should have brought this up before the third reading, but I just have a couple comments on it. Can I make it now, or do I need to pull it out?
If you have questions, we need to pull it out. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I would wish for 8 to be pulled out.
So we have a motion, we have a second, and we have a request here to pull 8 out. So we'll go back. Are we in agreement before I call for a vote? Are we in agreement for pulling item 8 from the consent agenda? Everybody? Go ahead, please.
Do we need to
Redo.
start over?
I'm sorry.
Make another.
Do we need to start over with the motion or make a new motion?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I make a motion that we pull out approve about the third and final reading of the policies.
Okay, so we have a motion to pull also 8 and seconded. So we have 2 motions here
Right.
that we need to vote on.
I think you need to finish the first one.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why I want to say, like, the first motion that means is, which is to accept the consent agenda. Shall we say the whole items or with the
Right.
exception of 8?
Well, you already have a motion to accept it as is, so if you don't want to do that, you have to
Can I modify my original motion?
modify it.
Yeah.
You don't-
Motion to approve the consent agenda as approved, excluding number 8.
Okay.
Third and final reading of policies.
So do we have a second to that motion? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those of you who are in favor of accepting the consent agenda with the exception of item 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, now we go back to item 8, and Kim, please go ahead.
I don't really have.
Do we need a motion
need a
to
motion.
approve it first and a second to get it on so we can discuss it?
Yes.
Oh, we need again, because I thought we did have a motion.
Make a motion to approve number 8, the third and final reading of the policies.
I move we approve third and final reading of policies,
Second.
I think,
and then that opens it to discussion.
I think that's
I
what Matt was
apologize.
saying.
I'm trying to get this
Yeah.
down right, but
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get it.
I
So,
can make the motion. and
Matt
just
made the
do-
motion.
Matt made the motion.
Kim, you second the
second.
motion.
Kim, yeah, second.
Now discussion.
Now the discussion.
My
Yep.
only discussion is I think this is a great, all of it looks really good, but I think we need to be a little more transparent in this too. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but we need to have accountability that these things are actually happening in every building. I think sometimes parents of some of our at-risk or our bilingual, some of this stuff is not necessarily being followed through. And I'm not sure if I'm doing this in the right order. I should have done it earlier, but, so I think the policies are great. I guess my only comment is that we are somehow holding people accountable that these things happen. And I just wanted to get that in. I didn't know if I could say it earlier or not, because I feel like some of the things we could do better at with parent support and parent education on these.
So Kim, what I hear you saying, it's not a policy issue,
No,
it's a
not
follow-through
at
issue.
all. That's why I wasn't sure how, and I
And again,
apologize for.
I would just follow up with, if you're aware of things, please share those with
Right,
us
and
so
I
we can
do.
follow.
I'm just saying, it was more of a comment than.
Right, and that's just my
Problem with the policy.
comment back to everyone. If there is an issue with something, like, obviously, we have policies in place and we want to follow the
Right,
policies.
and I have brought
we'll
some
follow.
to your attention. I just feel like we need to be maybe a little bit more diligent on the parent component in our district for all parents, but that's my only comment.
But I do have, though, two. And mine was as in that sometimes it says parent guardian, sometimes it says parent legal guardian, sometimes it says parent. And so just having the continuity in place as in how we're showing who is the responsible folks.
Anything else? Any other feedbacks? I mean, great feedbacks. Thank you for bringing those points back, but we still need to go and vote on item 8 in the consent agenda as we have a motion and second. So those of you who are in favor of item 8 in our consent agenda, which is the third and final reading on policies, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. So this will take us to item J, which is to approve the 6 to 8 literacy adoption and professional development, grades 6 to 8, HMH, $184,831.92. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the 6-8 literacy adoption and the professional development, grade 6-8, for a fee of $184,831.92.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the 6 to 8 literacy adoption and professional development, grades 6 to 8 HMH, the cost of $184,831.92. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, motion carried. Next item is to approve the district Wi-Fi access point replacement purchase from Reliable Network Solutions in the amount of $58,841.34. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved?
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I see Scott is ready to answer and entertain any question that any of you might have. Any question?
Well, I guess interesting one is, okay, one of them is at 134,000, the other one's 58,000. Why so much of a difference?
Yeah, so if you look at the way E-rate works is that we have to post the project on the federal government's E-rate website, and then it's up there for at least 28 days. Any interested vendor will bid on it at that point. And then we take that down, and then we have to evaluate those bids, which is what this is. So the first company, they bid Meraki, which is a different brand, and so their bid was for $674,105.24. But because we get an 80% discount, which is substantial, we only pay the 20% of that quote. So that's why the Cambium bid, which was $294, $206.69, the 20% that we would pay was that $58,841.34.
That's still quite a bit of difference in money either way you look at it, though,
Yeah,
for
they
the
were
two bids.
Totally different products. Yep.
Any other question for Scott? Okay, thank you, Scott. So those of you who are in favor of approving the district Wi-Fi access point replacement purchase from Reliable Network Solution in the amount of $58,841.34. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. So moving forward, we move into item L, which is to approve the K-12 Social Studies Adoption and Professional Development, Inquire Ed, $195,026.45. Imagine Learning, $150,080. TCI, $88,340. And MPS, $19,291.39 for a total of $452,737.84. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Are these prices, are they total? I mean, as far as, they're not renewable or anything like that, are they?
So the quotes that are attached are for 7 years, so that's the total cost for the 7-year period. If we would have went with the 1-year quote, I just wanted to show you the, a difference between the two. The 1-year quote, we would have to renew every single year, so there's no other costs than that.
And I'm going to reiterate, I've already talked to Joel today, and I've talked to several parents and teachers. I will probably vote nay on this due to the fact that I think K2 could better use $90,000 in just supplementing the ESL curriculum that we currently have. I've discussed why I feel that way before, but I just think it's fiscally smarter to use that $90,000 to supplement to meet the few standards that there are in K2, so.
Thank you, Kim. Any other discussion? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the K-12 Social Studies Adoption and Professional Development Inquire Ed for $195,026.45, Imagine Learning for $150,080, for TCI $88,340, and MPS $19,291.39, for a total of $452,737.84. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, so motion carried. Thank you.
Say nay.
The next item is to approve the FY25 general fee structure. What are the wishes of the board? So we have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the FY25 general fee structure, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, motion carried. That will take us to item N, which is to approve the purchase of playground equipment for Grant Elementary School from Crouch Recreation, Inc. in the amount of $312,846.80. What are the wishes of the board?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. And a second. Any discussion?
Again, we had more than one bid on this, correct?
Yeah, so it goes back to, when we did Mulberry, we reached out to a variety of contractors, and the others just had very long lead times.
Yep.
So that's why we went with this particular company, and then because we put them together, then that saves us even more money.
Yep.
So when will they, I know
So they're
Mulberry's
gonna-
equipment's there.
Right, they're gonna start on Mulberry, and then as soon as they finish that, then they'll be rolling right into Grant. So it'll be ready for the start of the school year.
And remind me, this money comes out of what funds?
It comes out of our capital project funds. And this is money we set aside each year for
Right.
updates and improvements.
Right, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Those of you are in favor of approving the purchase of playground equipment for Grant Elementary School from Crouch Recreation, Inc. in the amount of $312,846.80. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carried. The next item that we have on our agenda is to approve the purchase of a Ford Transit 350 passenger van from Next Gen Motors of Muscatine in the amount of $47,055. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any question?
This is transit, how many passengers is it for?
Yeah, I have to get an exact number of passengers.
It's like a
It's used,
12
so
one or
typically
something?
those, if we get used, we can get a 12-passenger van.
Yeah,
That's a problem, we're not allowed to buy them new that way, but we can buy used ones, which is why they're so difficult to get. And many times, even some of our new orders for smaller vans just don't ever materialize.
and are these used specifically for going for games and such? Or is this
A
something that we
variety of
can use it
student
for?
activities or staff activity, doesn't, it's just
And-
part of the transportation fleet.
And so that if we have a bus, a larger bus, that we don't necessarily need a large bus going for 4 or 5 students, that we could use this as a.
Yeah, so when they would submit for transportation, they'd put the number of students, so we'd know, given the number of adults and students, whether that van would be appropriate or a larger bus.
No, I don't mean for activities, I meant for the daily ride to school.
We only
Where?
use just regular buses for those daily routes to school.
Well, because I've heard some discussion anyway about that there are parents that have seen where there's only maybe 3, 4 on a very large bus that they're going in that. So I just didn't know if there was a more efficient way to be able to look at some of it.
Typically, if you're seeing only a few students, that's because it's probably a special education route, which requires a lift, and so you may not have many kids on that route.
All right, thank you.
So when they build routes each year, they're looking at where students are, and the goal is to fill that bus. It could also be a high school route. One of the things we know about high school routes is a lot of kids ride the bus at the beginning of the year. Suddenly they're getting driver's license, finding a friend. By the end of, halfway through the year, there's hardly any kids left on that bus because they found other means. So that's kind of a typical process. So if you're seeing a bus and there's only a few kids on it, there's probably, again.
There's more than one explanation instead of what
Correct.
they're seeing, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
What year is the new van gonna be? Not new.
2021.
2021, yep. It does. It's just a lot of really small print.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the purchase of a full transit 350 passenger van from Next Gen Motors of Muscatine in the amount of $47,055, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carried. So the next item is to approve the change order to Centennial Contractors in the amount of $49,620 to add a fire access road and pavement revisions for the MCSD Susan Clark Sports Complex project. What are the wishes of the board? Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, so those of you are in favor of approving the change order for Centennial Contractors in the amount of $49,620 to add a fire access road and pavement revisions for the MCSD Susan Clark Sports Complex project. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carried. So the next item on our agenda is discussion and information, and I see Tom is ready for us.
Yeah. So tonight, there's the May financials there. The treasurer's report and financial summary compared to last year at the same period. So June will be the end of our fiscal year. And so for the next 2 months, we'll be basically closing our books and getting ready for the certified annual report in September. So a lot of things will be happening here at the end of June, beginning of July with our accruals and such. And so you can probably expect a preliminary financial report for the fiscal year 24 in August, probably with July. In July, we won't be giving a financial report just because of The second Monday falls right away in July, and there'll be lots of people in my department on vacation the week of the 4th, so I'm just letting you know ahead of time that financial report will be in August for the fiscal year. Lots of grant reporting gets done in July. By the 15th, by the 25th, we'll have a lot of federal grants that we have to report for the fiscal year. So prepared to have a snapshot, preliminary snapshot of our unspent authorized budget and solvency ratio to board targets. We should have a pretty good idea by then. And so, you know, based on, these are the May financials. I don't have any red flags to, you know, make you aware of. We're on target to be on budget, under budget for our revenues and expenses in the general fund. So if you don't have any questions, that's all I got tonight.
Well, Tom, I have just a quick question.
Sure.
Yeah, typically from June into July, what kind of activities do we or should we expect usually in the financial review?
So you mean as far as being reported to you in
Yeah.
July? So typically, I report the month, you know, May just ended, I'm reporting the month of May financials. But in July, I could do a preliminary report in, for the, and basically the treasurer's report could be done in July for the July board meeting. And it's possible that could be done, but I'm not making any guarantees. Just if you look at the calendar, it becomes problematic when the first Monday falls on the first, like the first is the first Monday, and then the board meeting is the second Monday. And so 5 days is pretty, 5 business days is pretty tight to get financials done. And then when you add in a holiday that falls like before the end of the week, that makes it more problematic. But there is still lots going on, and I just don't want to present information that maybe is not, you know, as up to date as it can be, so.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Mike, I think I'm maybe kind of what you're getting at here, because to me, from what you're showing, it's looking pretty good that our general fund revenue, we're at 92% of the
We've
budget.
recorded 92% of our budget so far.
And then general fund, like 79 something, so that's pretty
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
at this time of year, right?
And if you remember, well, yeah, so the last month in June, we receive our final state aid, so that's the only next, besides the federal revenue, that we have to record yet. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, the next item on the discussion and information is the first reading of student handbook. So again, please look at the student handbook, and if you have any feedback, any question, please connect with Daphne, so that I'm sure Daphne can answer any of your questions. But again, we will have 2 more readings of the student handbook before we get to approve it for next year. Any question at this point for first reading of student handbook?
I
Okay.
guess I would like to see,
ahead.
and I talked to Daphne about this earlier, you know, for the high school cell phone use, I guess I would like to see that more in line with the middle school. I know a lot of the districts around the state are going to a cell phone policy for high school that, with no cell phones. And their reasoning is for student mental health. So I guess I'd like to see that more in line with that, if they could talk about that at the meetings.
I know that cell phone policy has been a topic of discussion for the high school, for their staff, both in terms of which direction they should go, but also enforcing the policies that are in place. I know they piloted some different, like phone cases, so when kids come in, they put them in the, we'll call it the phone hotel for lack of a better term, shut them, lock them in, and then at the end of the period, they're released. So one of the things that they are going to do in that conversation with staff is then they're gonna purchase those for everyone. but everyone needs to use it, right? And that's been the biggest conversation, is,
I guess my only concern is when they have them in the hallway, you know, I know we had instances this year where kids were videotaping fights or videotaping our substitute teacher, you know, different videotaping things that they're not supposed to be doing, but they are doing. So I guess that would be a hallway issue if they had them in the hallway, so.
okay.
Thank you, Danny. Anybody else? Anything? Okay, so item C is second reading of policies 502.5, student drug, tobacco, alcohol offenses. Any question about that? And again, same thing, if you look at the policy and you have any question or any comments, please reach out to Daphne and let her know before our next meeting. So with that, we move into the announcements, meetings, and events. June 11, the MCSD and Riverbend Food Bank, 4 to 5:30 p.m. here at District Office, 2900 Mulberry Avenue. There will be no food pantry in July. July 8th, our regular board meeting at 6:15 p.m. at the MCSD Admin Center, 2900 Mulberry Avenue. And remember, no community conversation in July. We go back with community conversations in August. And July 26th, we have the work session meeting, 9 a.m., MCSD Admin Center, 2900 Mulberry Avenue. Anybody have any other item to add to this list? Well, if there's no item, thank you all, and can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
So we have a motion and a second. Those of you who are in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Good night, everybody.